Hi everybody, Rachel here from Rachthestamper.com, and today I'm going to show you this really cool box that I was asked to make recently when I did a Facebook Live. And first of all, I have to give props to Elizabeth Jean Thatcher. She is the one who shared this originally a few years ago. I'm going to show you the one I originally created for her, through her directions, I should say. So this little box that opens up, and you can put your cards in here. Now, her version, I did find a little small for myself to fit envelopes in. You could fit them in, but they kind of folded, so it could have been something that I measured incorrectly. So I did go ahead and change the box up a little bit, but the premise is the same, and I kind of just enlarged it slightly, and then I added a few things of my own. But there is a lot of DSP in this, but it's also as much as you want because you don't have to decorate it as detailed as I did. This is the first one I made this probably about 3 years ago, and you can see I laid DSP on the inside to cover up the seams, on the inside of the lid, on the outside here. I laid a piece on the inside, but the most important piece probably is to lay a piece on the bottom, which you don't usually see that, but you actually are going to create two spines to hold your flaps on. So probably one of the more important ones is actually to cover that up. So I'm going to show you guys how to make it. This is the version that I added to, and I added a little bit of a belly band. It doesn't need that. I'm going to tell you quite honestly, I made this little sentiment to go on the front, happiest of birthdays to you, and I used the picture perfect birthday. But I also have so I use the sentiment right here. I also have a few ideas for this that I'm going to try to make boxes for, and then what I will do is I will show you guys as I go along. I have a great idea to do these for someone who's just had a baby and maybe they need some thank you cards. So I have a lot of those that I want to make, but I want to also make the cards to go with it. So you could just give them something like, here, this is for you. I want to see your baby and hold the baby. And this is an exchange for holding the baby. And then you could give them some thank you cards to give out. But another idea I thought too was for sympathy cards. So maybe you could give this to someone who had a loved one who passed, and you could put some cards in there. We have some wonderful sympathy sets that you could put cards in there, and that way they could have something to give some notes to. So anyway, I'm going to show you the inside of this. And this one I made using fresh fig paper, fresh fig cardstock, and then I used the Timeless Textures, I believe, Timeless Textures DSP, and then I decorated the front of this actually just using this little spot here from the Sea of Textures. So what I ended up doing was, though, the way I made this on the back, if you guys can see there, I brought the ribbon around, and I kind of couldn't bring myself to tape it to one side or the other of this because I was afraid it would show. So that's why I put it on a belly band. And then the other thing was my belly band didn't fit all the way around. So this was kind of nice because it ended up holding it together. So you can omit this belly band portion if you want, because the box does stay closed on its own. It doesn't need that. It closes up really nicely. And you can fit an envelope in here and cards, which was what was requested. So when I do my next versions of these, I'm going to do a Christmas version and then make a few cards to put in. I'm going to do a version for someone who has lost a loved one. So a sympathy version where you could give to them the box, and then they would have the thank you, kind of like thank you for thinking of us in this difficult time, sympathy return cards. And then another version with maybe for a new mom with some thank you cards for gifts that she may receive. So anyway, again, this is decorated as much or as little as you want, but if you don't put that layer on the bottom, this is what it looks like. You can see your spines. So I just wanted to leave this off so you guys would be able to see why it's nice to add that piece of paper, because it kind of covers it all up and takes the mystery, so they can't see exactly how all the work that you put into this. But once again, for this one, I didn't put the extra layers in like I did for this one. So I covered up kind of all the seams here. So you can do that, but I just wanted you guys to be able to see what it looks like when you don't put that on. So once again, I'm just going to pop the belly band back on this. And once again, also the belly band is optional. So if that's something that you wanted to add, you absolutely could, but you don't have to. And this I thought just kind of covered up the seam a little bit. I actually filmed this video the other day and I had it put together and the center didn't meet. So I was like completely finished filming this video almost and the center didn't line up. I had to go back and remeasure something because I changed the bottom of the box, but I forgot to change the flaps for the lid. So anyway, we did this with the Sea of Textures. So I'm not going to finish this one today that we're going to make, but I am going to show you guys exactly how to do it. Grab yourself a cookie and something to drink because there are a lot of measurements. You will be able to find all these measurements on my blog, which is rachthestamper.com, so don't feel like you have to write them down. I'll post them all on there. But it'll be also nice if you watch this video maybe once you've cut your cardstock, because you'll be able to follow along a little easier. You definitely want your bone folder. Unfortunately, I left my tear and tape downstairs, so this is a different adhesive I have. This is a Sookwang adhesive. I will post a link for this on the blog as well if you're interested in getting this, but tear and tape works fantastically. I put this one together with tear and tape, but I just left it downstairs, so I didn't have it handy. Also, you're going to need some paper snips. And you definitely want to use either a good amount of snail adhesive or, quite honestly, the Tombow liquid glue holds the paper down better when you put the DSP on, so no pieces aren't tearing up as you open and close your box. So to start, there is a lot of DSP here, and as we go along, I will give you the measurements for all of this. But to get started, for the box, you're going to need a piece that is 9 inches, so 9 inches by 7 6/8. And then you're going to need 2 pieces, and these are for the lids, and these measure 7 6/8 by 4 5/8. So 7 6/8 by 4 5/8. So you can see these are pretty close to the same. So you're going to need, unfortunately, 3 sheets, because these have, you might be able to get this out of 2. But I use 3 sheets of cardstock for this. And then you're going to need 1 more piece of paper, and this is all going to be the base color, so you can choose any color you like. Again, this one is Fresh Fig, and this measures 4 by 2. This is actually going to be our spine, and again, it's very easy to cut this. I followed mostly along with Elizabeth's video because she had a really detailed video, so if you are interested in watching that, you can find her at craftsbyhappystamper.com. I will post her blog also, and her name again is Elizabeth Jean Thatcher. She is a part of Team Stamp It as well, so I'll post that link on there in case you want to see hers. She made a really cool one as well, but it's been a little bit since she did it, so this is the new updated version. Okay, so we're going to begin by creating our box. So I'm going to use the Simply Scored, and let me just move my tear and tape out of the way. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to score this at 1.5 inches on each side. Okay, so all 4 sides, 1.5 inches. And I would advise you, instead of trying to measure the opposite way, especially if there's a tiny chance that you might have cut your paper, this is the best way to do it to get something to be square. So just continue turning it when you have something like this on all 4 sides, instead of trying to measure the opposite, because sometimes if you're just a hair off, it'll kind of mess your box up just a little bit. So I'm going to also go ahead and score these while I'm at it. These are going to be 2 flaps, just because it'll be a little simpler. So we're going to score this on 3 sides at 1.5 inches. So short side, long side, and short side. Okay, so for these right here, you're going to have one side, long side, that doesn't have any scoring on it. That's correct. So same thing again, 1.5 inches on 3 sides. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put our box together first. So what you're going to want to do is make sure that you reinforce your folds with your bone folder, because you do want a nice square and very crisp edged box. And then there's also going to be a lot of DSP that I'm going to be putting on here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do this with the paper snip. So I'm going to cut all 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, just up to the score line. And again, I will tell you the DSP as I go along, but you will be able to find all the measurements on Rachthestamper.com. And usually what I do is when I go and do a video like this, I'll kind of print all my paper off, and then I will, or cut all my paper up, and then I'll go back and watch the video as I go along. So I'm going to give these just a little bit of a miter cut just to make sure they square off nicely when we adhere them. All 4 sides. It's crazy, when I did this video the other day, I was like almost to the end. And you know, when you're doing a video versus me when I'm used to doing the Facebook Lives, I was talking about something. I'm going to go ahead and put tear and tape on these 4 corners here. I was talking about something, and I had no idea what, but it was something that was important, but couldn't remember what it was. And since I wasn't doing a live, I couldn't ask anybody. So I've started to take that for granted, that I'm sitting here talking to myself and I have someone to say, what was I saying again? But I completely lost my train of thought, and then I ended up screwing up the lid anyway, so I had to start over again. So I guess whatever I had to say wasn't all that important. Okay, so getting really excited. We were packing today for our Disney trip. We leave for next week, and then I will get to go to Center Stage while I'm there, which I'm so excited about. I will try and post a lot of videos and pictures if I'm allowed to for you guys. I'm only going to the main part, so I'm just going to remove all the release tape. So I'm not going to the rest of the convention, which I'm a little sad about because it's neat. You get to see so much stuff, and it'll kind of be like a surprise to me when I get back, because I really won't have seen as much as everybody else did. But we already had our vacation planned for Disney, so I'd rather be at Disney with my family. Okay, so now I've removed the release paper, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take these edges, and actually I noticed a couple of these are just a little bit off, so I'm going to trim these up just so I have a nice edge. Make sure nothing else. This one's a little bit over. Should be good. Okay, so I'm going to bring these in and just lightly press. I don't ever really fully press this until I've decided that I like it the way it is. So I kind of just have it in here just lightly pressed in a holding pattern. So that looks pretty good. So then I go back in with my bone folder and just press the bottom. Okay, just like that. And now we're going to do the same with this. So these are our 2 flaps that we're going to create. So we're going to fold these on the score lines on all 3. And same thing again. And actually, before we did that, I should have done one other thing. So let me show you that on this. So in order to make these little creases here, what we're going to do is we're going to grab our ruler, and we're going to mark these at a 1/2 inch from the score line. So you have your corner and then your rectangle. So we're going to mark a 1/2 inch from the square corner, and then a 1/2 inch from this corner that has no score line. So I'm going to just do this with a pencil. So again, I'm going to show you, oops, not centimeters. So what I'm going to do is I'm lining my 0 mark up here with the score line, and then I'm going to make a little mark here at the 1/2 inch. So it doesn't have to be, oops, doesn't have to be anything big. Just so you can see, because we're going to cut, and then we're going to do the same thing over here on this score line. So I'm going to put this one actually at the 1/2 inch and then mark the 0 line. Do the same over here. And I wanted to show you guys this as it went along, because it does make more sense as you do it. And the first time when I did this again this year, I actually marked a 1/4 inch by mistake. So if you can see here, we have a 1/2 inch mark, a 1/2 inch mark, and this is the one with no score line, a 1/2 inch mark, and a 1/2 inch mark. And I'm going to go ahead and mark these 2 real quick, and then we'll cut them all at the same time. And what this does is it kind of just gives you a nicer fold flap to your box. Okay, so now what we're going to do is grab our trimmer. Where did I put my trimmer? Okay, and this might be a little bit hard to see, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this score line up, or this tick mark here, and this tick mark, and then I'm going to cut it. Okay, so I'm just going to line this up with the cutting edge here and here. So one's here, and I'm going to cut just like that. So you see I pulled that little flap off. You can still see this a little bit, but that's okay. So same thing on this one. So you're going to line up your tick marks. All right, so I have one up here and one down here. Cut and repeat on the other one as well. And one more. And this is probably one of the most complicated parts, if you call this complicated, of the whole situation. So you have now these little angles here. So the only other thing that you're going to have to do, put somewhere so it doesn't fall, is you're going to have to measure the DSP, but that's quite simple as well. So there is a little teeny pencil mark here. If you want, you can go ahead and erase it, but quite honestly, you're going to cover it up with a little bit of DSP. So unless you were like really, really dark, it should be fine. So now we're going to trim these 4. So 1, again, I'm going to the score line. And while I'm here, I'm going to give this just a teeny miter cut, just a little bit. Same on this side. Okay. And then we're going to do the same over here. So I'm going to go ahead and do this with my bone folder. And then I'm going to fold this in. And then same thing. So I'm going to cut here. Give that a little angle cut. And one more on this side. Okay, same thing, give this a little angle cut. Okay, so once again, this is our box, and then these, so what these are going to do is they're going to fold in, just like so. We'll put adhesive, and then these are going to be our lids. So there's one, and these do overlap just the tiniest bit. So if that bothers you, you can certainly trim just a hair, and I mean a hair, off of one of the 2 of them. It's up to you, but they will sit right on there. Now, one other thing that you need to keep in mind as you do this is, for some of these, the way we put the DSP on, you want to put it underneath. For some of them, you want to put it on after the fact. Like, for example, this one here, this goes above the flap, so we can put this on now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and show you the parts you can put on, and then there's a couple that you want to put on as you go along, okay? So if you want to decorate the bottom, which originally I think I cut out this piece here, okay? So you're going to need for the bottom of your box, and then for the underneath of your box, which this one we're not going to put on until the very end, okay? You'll need 2 pieces of this, and this is going to measure 5 7/8 by 4 5/8, okay? So this one I'm going to save until the very end because we're going to put that on the bottom. But you could go ahead and put this inside right now if you'd like. And then again, like I said, if you want to put one on the inside here, you can as well. Just kind of depends. So that kind of makes your card look a little bit finished there. So if you want to put them on, let me make sure I have the right one here. Okay, so you could put one here on the outside, and then if you're going to do them on the inside as well, so you're going to cover up the seams, you're going to just need to cut 4 of them instead of 2, okay? So this measures 5 7/8 by 1 3/8. So I believe I cut 4. Nope, I only cut 2 of that one. So I'm going to cut 2 more. And then the other one is for this side. So you could put this here. And then if you wanted to put one on the inside, you could cut 4. Same thing again. This measures 4 5/8 by 1 3/8. So 1 3/8 is about the measurement that everything is height-wise, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and put these 2 on the side. Let me grab these. And I'll just have to cut 2 more of these. Now, you can pick any DSP that you like, and you could certainly go with whatever color scheme, or whatever you want to use. I actually started off with a different one on the end, and quite honestly, I think I liked the first one that I picked better. So I'll show you guys what I cut, and I will use it, but I like the other one better. So that would go on the short side, on the outside, and then if you wanted to put one on the inside, you just slide it in and press. And I do know it is a little bit of paper, so this is kind of up to what you think you want to use in your paper, but it really makes it look nice when the inside and the outside of the box is finished. So I'll just line that up. So I just have to cut 2 more pieces I wanted to finish the inside of this, but I'm not going to make you guys watch that. So if you wanted to do that, you would cut this, and then I'll do this. You could cut it for the inside, but I'm going to just do all the outsides. And one other thing I want to tell you is you want to make sure if there's anything that you really use a lot of adhesive on, you want it to be these, because these are going to be lifted up a lot. So you want to make sure that you really get a good amount of adhesive, and I'm just pressing these down just to make sure they're nicely adhered, because you don't want it ripping up when you're doing it. So like, for example, this little piece here could use a little bit more on it, but this is on the side, so that's not going to be as much of a problem. Okay, so that is the bottom of the box. So barring those two inside pieces, it's finished. Let me set this up here so I don't wreck it. Okay, then we have our lids. So what I am going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put on the pieces for the top, and I picked this dot. So personally, that's what I was saying. I kind of liked this pattern a little bit more, but I just used this one because I had this available. So you'll need 2 pieces for this, and this is going to measure 4 5/8 by 3 inches. So I'm going to put both of these on. But you could also, if you went with a different pattern, you could use the blue instead. Blue paper. Make sure I get this to the end. And then I'm going to show you what we're going to do with the flaps, which this part is fairly easy to do. It's just that you have to remember to do 2 of them regular and then 2 of them backwards. Okay, so then if you can also put 2 strips here, which I believe I cut 2 strips. I wonder if I just used them on something else I might have. Yep, I think I did. So let me just pop. What do these look like? Yeah, those are a little dark. Okay, so I'm going to trim these 2 pieces down. Where is my trimmer? Move that over. So for the short side, once again, you'll need 4 5/8 by 1 3/8. So 4 5/8, pretty good. And then 1 3/8. So let me just trim this up just a hair. And even though I know these are a little bit different than what I put down, I'll just use this. That way you guys don't have to suffer through me pulling out a different piece of paper. So I'm going to just put a little bit of adhesive here. And we're almost done, believe it or not. I know this feels like it's forever. So put this on. One thing you do want to make sure that if you cut these and your paper is directional, so if you were to have like arrows or stripes or something, you want to make sure you stick with something that is kind of movable depending on which way you go. Okay, so one more thing while I have my trimmer out. Remember we had this piece earlier. This measures 2 by 4. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and score this on the long side, okay, at a 1/2 inch. And then we're going to score it again, just turning it around. I find it's easier to score things that are 1 inch or less on the right side of the trimmer. So we'll score that. So you see we have a score line, big space, and then we're going to just cut this. So we're going to line it up at 1 inch, and we're going to cut straight up. And this is easier than cutting 2-inch strips. Makes it just a little bit simpler. So we're going to take these and we're going to fold them. And once again, make sure you reinforce these with your bone folder. And if you want to, you can make them just a little bit longer, but you don't really have to. All right, so now these I'm going to sit on the side for just a moment because I want to show you guys how to do this little flap part here. So first of all, when you close your flap, you're going to see you're going to have this little piece underneath here. So you can just either use a pencil if you'd like, or you can kind of just go crazy and trim it with your scissor, just like that. So same thing again, I'm just folding the flap in to the square corner. And then again, if you wanted to, you could take your pencil and make a line here. But quite honestly, I find it kind of hard to trim off just that one little spot. So I found this is a little bit simpler. Well, it was simple up until that last one. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. So once again, we're just taking the end flap, folding it in, and just trimming. Just kind of hold that with your fingers, trim. And then one more time over here, fold in, and make sure that's nice and square. Just trim, okay. All right, so now we have one more thing to do. And I won't say that this is complicated because it's not. This is just probably one of the ones that's a little bit involved. I would like to get something to match this. Let me see if I have another piece of that. this paper, so at least these side flaps here match. Let's see if there's anything smaller. Might be able to get 2 out of that. Let's see. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to take your piece of DSP and you're going to fold this in the way you would want it. Okay, and you don't even have to honestly fold that part in at thus far. But what you're going to do is you're going to take your paper and you're going to kind of line it up just a hair away from the edge and the inside. Okay, so just hold it where you want it, and then you're going to flip it over. And this is a little bit busy, but you're going to take your pencil and you're just going to trace it. And then you're going to cut this out, okay? So this one's going to be the template. I will say you want to cut on the inside of your pencil mark, because no matter how precise you think you cut it, it's always just a hair too big. Okay, so I'm going to cut this. All right, and let's hold this up and see what it looks like. So actually, that's pretty good. I still think I'm going to take a little bit off the end here, though. Okay, so now this is going to be your template for the other pieces that you're going to make. So we're going to line another one up here. And we're going to do the same thing. And we're going to just trace. Okay, so same thing again. I'm going to just trim this out. And it's probably not easy to see that pencil line on this crazy paper here. Okay, so we have 2, right? So we have one here. We have one, oh, see, so this one's backwards. So you do have one for each, but a handy trick. So this one will go here, and this one will go over here. So when you're doing these, a handy trick is, I'm going to show you on this one. This is just a little piece here. You need to do 2 of them backwards. So you can either do it one way or the other. You can put one down, and you're going to trace this to get them so they match. And then you could do the other one butting right up to it, so then you have 2 opposites. But since we already did 2 of them that match, we need 2 opposites. So I'm going to do this one more time, and I'm going to just put it up here so it's kind of close. That way I'm just trying to not waste papers, basically why I've done it this way. But you can do them longwise next to each other if you have a strip of DSP. Whoops. And then cut both of them out at the same time. So I'm going to just trim on the edge here. And again, I am going to still stick on the inside of my pencil line. Okay. I'm going to cut this one out first. Cut it away from the paper. And then I'll cut them both out. So this makes sense, hopefully. Okay, so here's my one. And I'm always going to take a little bit off the edge because that seems to be just a little over size. Cut this one out. Okay, and then I'm going to cut just the end off of this one. Same thing again. And I do apologize. I'm trying my very best to keep this in screen, but I usually do my videos standing up, but this is so long I had to sit down for it. Okay, so now we should have 2 of each direction. So let's see. Okay, so hopefully I did this correctly. That way you guys won't think I'm crazy. All right, so there's one here. And, oh my gosh, did I? No, I didn't. Son of a gun. Blondie struck again. Let me see. Nope. Okay. So I should have listened to my advice earlier when I said to flip it the other way. All right. So what we're going to do, let me get that paper. Oh, one more time. So we need this to face this direction. So I'm going to put this here. I'm going to put this down one more time and trace it. And I'm not going to edit this or cut this out of the video because you have to learn how to do these things. All right, so I'm going to trim this once more. This is really not easy to see. But I promise you, once you do this once, you'll be making these over and over again. All right, so let's see. Hallelujah. There we go. Okay, so that one matched. And then we're going to do one more like this. So I'll just do this one on this page here. since we have a good square end. So same thing again, I'm just lining this up. Probably can't even tell because the pattern is so nuts. Okay, cut this last one out. Okay, and then when I'm finished, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over to show you what I meant about tracing them correctly so you can cut them correctly and you won't be wasting paper like me. But hey, now I have an excuse. I can make another one because I have two already set, so one's going the other way. Now, one thing you do want to keep in mind is when you do these every time, sometimes they're just like a tad bit different every single time. So there we go. We have those. And then we have that. And do I have my other one? What did I do with it? Here it is. So you have all four of those. So you could technically make a template and keep it, but almost every single time you do these, you might measure them a little bit differently. So if you were doing this the first time, you're going to cut these triangles out on the paper. The best way to do it, and I'm going to flip it over so you can see it on this, is to cut out one, and then you're going to flip it over and trace it. So you would cut, let's say you would cut this one out. I'm going to just go ahead and show you what I mean. So you would trace this like that. And then you're going to flip it over. And then you're going to line this up. And you can pretty much butt them up next to each other because it's going to be, like I said, it's usually a little bit over. And just make sure you're nice and square at the bottom. And then you're going to cut or trace again. And then that way you're going to cut both of them out at the same time, if you can see that there. And then all you have to do is just adhere them, okay? So this should be the last bit. So we're going to go ahead and put these on. You flip them all over. Put on two at a time. I am going to make sure that I cover these pretty well with adhesive just so nothing falls off. Okay, so I'm going to put these two on. 1, 2. And I do find that when you put the DSP on, and this is just from personal experience with doing a lot of 3D projects, because I do a lot of 3D projects because I like them. I think they're really fun. I think it always works easier if you can, at any point, put your DSP on before you actually assemble whatever it is that you're making. Because it seems to me that you can get your DSP to stick much better to the actual cardstock. There we go. So I'm going to just go ahead and just press this with my bone folder. Okay. And then all we have to do is just put some tear and tape over here. And we're going to fold these, put them together, and then we will finish. And hopefully, I know this was a little bit longer of a video, but I hope you found it worth it. If you have any questions, as always, you can send me an email at rachthestamper@gmail.com. You can leave a comment on the blog post here if that's where you're watching it, or on YouTube. You can find me on all those places, Rach the Stamper, YouTube, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, all at Rach the Stamper. And if you ever can't find me, just send me an email. I'll tell you where I am. And speaking of, if you need a catalog, because there is going to be a new occasions catalog coming out pretty shortly, if you don't have a demonstrator, I'm going to just fold these in and lightly press. I would love to be your demonstrator. I would love to send you a catalog. All you have to do is send me your full mailing address to rachthestamper@gmail.com. And I will send you one out. The occasions catalog, which is the 2018, it's kind of like the spring catalog. That will be coming out probably at the end of December, because that also coincides with Celebration, which is amazing. In the past, it's been, I don't know what it is this year, but usually if you spend $50, you get something free. And they have had some really great stamp sets in the past year. Okay, so I did finish adhering those. So we have our box, and we have our lids, and I'm going to just make sure that this goes together. This is the point that failed me the other day when I had to stop. There we go. So it completely closes. Okay, so all we have to do now is we're going to put on our spines, and then we're going to put the bottom, and we'll be all done. So I'm going to show you, let me move these out of the way, what we're going to do for this last part. So we're going to put some tear and tape onto the inside of the spine. So it doesn't really matter, you just have to pick one, but they're going to kind of be mirror images. So you're going to put it on the inside, and then you're going to close the flap and put it on top. So this is going to stick it to the bottom, and then it's going to stick it to the flap. I'll hold these in place, and then all we have to do is cover up the bottom. Super simple. And I don't recall who it was. I feel like it might have been Diana that asked for this project, but thank you, Diana, for the suggestion. And I actually was really happy to make this because I've been meaning to do it for a while. So sometimes you guys making the suggestions are what really helps me to get motivated to create something. Okay, so I'm going to put these onto the flap first. So the easiest way to do is to peel away the release paper. Okay, and then we're going to kind of line this up so it's at the edge and pretty much centered, and then just press down. And at this point, you can't really move it, so you might as well just stick it and go with it there. So we're going to do the same thing on this one. And I know I'm putting them both on the same side, but they're opposites, but they're pretty much identical at this point. Just line that up approximately, flip it down, press. Okay, then I'm going to peel off the release paper of both of them. Okay, so I have my box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the lid onto the box, kind of like that. Same thing with this. Put the lid onto the box, just like that. Make sure it lines up nicely and you like how it is. And what I do is I usually push them in, and one of them typically is going to overlap the other. And it's okay. Just have to stick with whatever it is that happens. That's the one that goes. So I'm going to press this down. Same thing again. Oops, this one's stuck a little early. Push it tight as you can, press it down, and then you're going to flip it over. And then you can press it with your finger, but I still do kind of push it with my bone folder just to make those pieces stick together. Okay, and then last but not least, we're going to just cover up the bottom seams with this. So once again, I'm going to put a good amount of snail on here. You could use Fast Fuse, you could use the Combo liquid glue, but you don't want the bottom to fall off. And I'm going to just lay this, let me close this up so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to lay this right over here, and it's just going to cover up the bottom so nicely. It's going to look super professional, and then just kind of go in there and okay, and that's it. So that's going to make this gorgeous box. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, if you wanted to make a belly band for it, you could, or you could just make a little decorative part and kind of just stick it onto one side versus the other. So you could just put your oval here adhered or on this side, but they both open so beautifully. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. You'll get to see better pictures of these on the blog. I know it's a little difficult to see from where they are, but thank you all so much for taking time to watch. I'm not going to jibber jabber much. I hope you have an awesome day, and thank you again for the suggestion.